What's up, nerds? This is Mr. Storm, and today you're going to learn about the box model of CSS. This is when you're really going to be able to supercharge your design. Let's take a look. Let's dig right into box model. So, what is the box model? So, the box model is really a way to think about how we are going to structure things on the page. We talked about margins, borders, and padding last time, and this is just kind of a way to think about it. So margin, again, is on the outside of your border. Then you have your border, and then you have the padding, which is the inside, and then you have your content. So, and again, we talked about this in length in the last class period, but it's important to remember that each of these actually takes up space on the page. So let's say I had a margin that was 10 pixels, a border that was 1 pixel, a padding that was 9 pixels, and then my content was another 10 pixels. So this would actually be 10, 11, 20, 30 pixels to this point. But there would be another 9, so 39, 40, 50. So this would be 50 pixels tall. You have to add all of those elements together, all those widths together or heights together, to be able to see how big your total element is going to be. So that's important when you're starting to think about how you want your elements to look on the page and how you want them to interact with one another. Yeah, so there's that math right there. Please make sure you do the exercises because I'm not going through all of the information in each of these pages. I'm just trying to help you get an understanding of, orient yourself into the material. So, now there is one thing that is not a part of the element's dimensions. So your outline lets you add some information outside your border, but it doesn't actually apply to that pixel math that we just did. So you can do an outline around your border to give it more style. So there's a lot of styles, and it's basically a lot of the same border styles. Play around with these, have fun with these. That'll help to make your elements look really great. Let's take a look at text. All right, so text formatting, text color, fonts, all that stuff. You do not want to just keep the same boring font. One of the big reasons why is, let's take a look at my really crappy website from before. If you take a look, the default font is a serif font. Now, serif fonts are great for reading something off of a printed paper or reading in a book. Almost every book you've ever read uses a serif font because it's easier to read. You can kind of see the text decoration a little bit better on a printed page. But on the internet, we don't really want a serif font. It's actually easier to read sans serif fonts on a screen. So if you take a look up here, this is a sans serif font. The difference between a serif font and a sans serif font is that a serif font has the little tails on the ends of the letters. Each letter has a little tail or little decorations on it. Those are called serifs. Sans serif fonts don't have the tails, right? And so sans serif fonts are usually used for web design. You want to use sans serif fonts as much as you can on web pages. There are some web pages that use serif fonts as a style choice, and that's great, but you don't want to use them too often. You can change the color of your text, again, just like we've done before, using either the color name, the hex value, the RGB values. And the way you change the color of the text is you just use the color property for whatever element you're applying it to. You can change the alignment of your text, so you can align it to the center, to the left, to the right of whatever container it's in, if it's in a div or if it's just on the body of your page. So we can take a look there. So this heading is centered on the page, this heading is to the left, this heading is to the right, and it readjusts itself as I change the page itself, because it's in the center of the body of that web page. Text decoration, we can add decoration to our text, like an overline or a line through or an underline. Usually we do this for underlines. but that's text decoration. We have also text transformation, where you can make all your letters uppercase, lowercase, capitalize them, do whatever you want to do. You can indent your text. You can set spacing between your letters so that you get different spacing options. You can set the line height so that you can have your lines closer together or farther apart. You can set the text direction, so you can have your direction of your text going backwards, and that actually looks like a swear word, but it's not. You can set the spacing between your words, so you can space your words out. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. Add a shadow, all kinds of stuff you can do with text. Text is, there's a lot of changes you can make with CSS. Let's talk about fonts. So we talked about the serif and the sans serif fonts. It's really important that you understand the difference between those. This is a sans serif. Again, this is a serif because these little tails, these are called serifs. And sans means without in French. Yeah. So without serifs is a sans serif font. Now the way fonts work in a web browser is each web browser has a default font that it uses to display text if there's no font designated for that text. So it'll automatically pull up in a regular default font. But you can set generic font families for your text. So you can say, I want my text to be a serif font, and so it'll pick either Times New Roman or Georgia or another serif font that browser prefers. You can also set a sans serif font as your default, so it'll pick whatever sans serif font that it uses or prefers for that. Again, on computer screens, sans serif fonts are easier to read, so you're going to want to use those. You can set your font family property to change your font. So the way you do it is basically font family, and then you type the name of the font. If there are spaces, so if the font name has more than one word, you're going to want to throw some quotes around it so it's all put together. You can apply multiple fonts at the same time, and what it'll do is it'll try to apply your first font. If it can't, because the browser doesn't support that font or whatever, it'll go to your next font. If that doesn't work, it'll go to your final font. And so your final font in your font family decoration is you're gonna want to just have it like serif or sans serif, so it catches whatever type of font in your specified type and throws that up on the page. There are also web-safe font combinations that you can look at. This page is great because it has tons of web-safe fonts that you can already just declare. It's just a list of tons of fonts that you can use. You can also use Google Fonts, and that takes a little bit more work, but it's easy. You can change the font style, so normal, italic, oblique. You can change the size of your font, so you can have it be bigger. You can actually set it by a percentage, so you can say, I want my font to be 30% larger than it is, or 30 pixels, or whatever. So you can set it with pixels here. You can set it with EM, which is basically, it's a different way of measuring your font. Some developers use EM instead of pixels. That's fine. EM is great. I usually don't use EM. I usually use pixels. So it's just your own preference. You can use a combination of percent and EM so that your stuff works the right way. Let's see. I'm actually going to check it out here. So yeah, so this is applied. So the body is 100%, so that everything's 100%. But then they've sent the font size with an EM value for each one. So you could do that. Just keep playing around with it until you find the combination that works best for you. You can change the weight of your font, so you can make it normal or bold. That's how you bold your font. You can change the font variant to small caps. So you can vary your font. So this is the normal font, but you can change it to small caps. So every letter is a capital letter. It's just that the ones that aren't supposed to be capitalized are just going to be smaller. And then there's exercises there that you can play with. Now when you're all learned up and you're ready to go, I want you to go in and change your font for all of your header elements to a web-safe serif font, so with the tailies, and then change all your font for all your other elements to a web-safe sans serif font, whatever sans serif font you want. Remember to use your fallback fonts so that if the browser on the user end doesn't support the font that you chose, it'll fall back to a sans serif font. You want to change the text color of all your header elements to a color that makes it look great against your background if you haven't already done so. And then transform all of your header elements to uppercase. When you're done, you want to rezip your file and upload it, and you're good to go. So if you have any questions, come find me, come talk to me. Thank you for paying attention.